All right, folks, good evening. Just going to make sure I can hear myself before I continue. You can hear the old man. So I'm going to make this real short. Um, if you've been listening to me the last couple days on the live streams, I annotated some things on the chart. I talked about some scenarios that may or may not take place tonight. It's now 20 minutes after 8 Eastern time. So a course of action has been suggested to the Trump administration by Pakistan, and they counseled him to consider a different avenue. So, of course, after the markets are closed and right before the Asian session, the market gets jolted by this perfect scenario where Iran is not destroyed. Okay. I tweeted today, this evening, we see that crude oil, as we're looking at here, took a major hit. And I was telling you all to stay away from this thing, even though it can go higher, just it can hurt you. Okay. So I want you to think about how the um, the market with the open this evening traveled this much in one range. I mean, this is a significant price drop. So 109 plus down to 91. So that's a considerable amount of money. And sure, one can make the argument, say, "Well, look, it went down there and hit the volume imbalance. That's great." Okay, I'll give you my interpretation of what may have transpired tonight, and I am in no way suggesting that I know more than obviously someone that's plugged into the administration and what's privy to the military side of things. But if you were watching the news, we saw I guess, the buildup of Iran encouraging, we'll say it that way, for its citizens to stand around the locations that Trump said he would attack. And now, obviously, yeah, I can't imagine if these things would have took place with those individuals around those sites. Obviously, that would be horrific. It would be monstrous. Yeah, in that instance, I think that every other nation would actually come against us. And one could argue what would be a reason why that wouldn't be a good idea if something like that was taking place. It's plain murder, right? So with all of them standing around those targets, anyone with a conscience would have to say, okay, well, let me find another way around this. Okay. So what I think happened, and I think this is what's happening, because Iran's been consistent about how it doesn't want to do a ceasefire. It's going to punish Israel and it's going to punish America for what they did, and they're just going to be defiant. And that's their prerogative. They can do that. They are a sovereign nation. They have a right to defend themselves. Um, Perhaps, and this is just a speculation on my part. It's completely speculation and conjecture. I don't know for certain, but it would make sense. And you let me know in the comment section if it makes any sense to you. Since there's such a large degree of human bodies in the way of the targets that he announced, by saying that they're going to take the advice of another country, which I can't imagine Trump listening to another country, and after leaving the blistering comments that he stated, it was very very caustic, very venomous what he posted and how he's going to do it. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But to have then dial back and say, now we're going to do 2 weeks. Think about what 2 weeks does. 2 weeks can lull someone into thinking that they got plenty of time. And those individuals that were standing by those targets are certainly not going to camp out for 2 weeks. One wouldn't expect that. So, what happens when they go home? Because the strait's not going to get opened up, let's be honest. That's what he said. He said that it's contingent on, it's subject to them opening immediately the Strait of Hormuz. So, if that's not going to happen and doesn't happen, okay, well, that was the plan. That was the agreement on Trump's part. If you do that, we'll cease fire for 2 weeks, both sides. And I think historically, what happens is, even if that were to be worked out, I think Israel would disrupt it. They would do something to start it all up again, and that's kind of like their mo. They do it a lot. Like every single time they've ever had an incident, there's always some kind of a stirring of the pot. They have a vested interest in this continuing, and it wouldn't be a good thing for them to watch it wind down. So you can be upset about that, but that's just the facts. I mean, you just study the history around that nation, and that's what they do. So, and I'm not taking sides. I'm saying that this is my observations. This is what I'm seeing. So I think what they've done is they gave him a reason to let the people go home and get away from those targets. And because he said it's contingent on Iran opening that Strait of Hormuz, that would be the basis of a ceasefire. Okay, well, they get a temporary victory. They don't have to worry about getting bombed heavily tonight, and everybody goes home. Maybe they don't do anything tonight. Maybe they wait a couple days, but then they go do what they said they were going to do. That would be, the worst case scenario. They just go and do what they said they're going to do. They just delay it by a day or so. Um, the fact that he posted these things the last 2 days, warning of basically short of saying nuclear war. I mean, that's basically what it sounded like without using the terms. Because how are you going to destroy a whole entire nation inside of 4 hours? Come on. So he was using the most extreme language to do what? Prime the markets for a tanking, get everybody into it. Like it was dropping today. I told you that you're going in. Um, True to form, during the off session hours, they come in, they do something, and bang, here we are, we're up 600 plus handles on stock index futures, and crude oil's down tens of thousands of dollars per contract. So we're going to deal with a lot of this, as I mentioned yesterday and today in the live stream. Okay. If you're not experienced, if you don't have enough to really invest and you're like scraping by just to get a couple bucks into an account, this is not your year. I promise you, you're going to regret probably doing anything with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Take this year as an education year, spend it studying, learn some concepts, study, and remove yourself from the risk. Because as I stated, stay away from this market, just like I stated around the gold and silver market, because it's going to hurt you. Now, maybe there was somebody out here that said, you know what, I'm going to call Trump's bluff and I'm going to go short crude oil. I'm going to go long on the index futures because they're probably setting up that tomfoolery we talked about. And I want you to understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying, haha, I'm right about the technicals. I'm not saying that at all because if we're being honest, I said, don't get near it, don't touch it. And look for situations like this where they do a rug pull and all of a sudden, boom, the market takes off and goes a certain direction. Now, because I said it can go either way and the risks were high, the things I'm going to say tonight, don't read into that like me beating my chest and say, see how right I am. I'm not implying that at all. But I want you to take notice of how much the market's moving. And if you were in there over leveraging, how much damage this would do. You have to respect the risk because it's off the charts. no pun intended. So real quick, crude oil opened up on that news, sold off, went down to the volume imbalance, and we're back inside this range. And I told you this here is kind of like the catalyst. So this wick coming down doing the damage, as long as we're in this or above the low of it, we can still resume. So if they come back later on and do all the attacks they said, and Iran said they were going to respond by hitting everything in the area, oil related and other support structures for other nations, that's going to obviously cause you know parabolic rise in oil prices. So we're not out of the woods yet. Okay, this might be just a knee-jerk reaction to what would be obvious if you're placing human beings in front of the targets that another nation that's been bombing you said they're going to target, and they're going to lay waste to your country, starting with all these specific targets. You got to be a monster to say I'm just going to bomb it anyway. The international community is watching, so obviously it's not likely that's going to happen. So how do you save face but still do nothing that you say you're going to do? Well, another nation advised that I do that. And when did we ever start taking advice military wise from Pakistan? It doesn't make any sense, does it? But it's the perfect out. It's the perfect little excuse for them to let the people go home and then let those target rich environments through their eyes become available again. And then they strike them quick, sudden, fast. And it's going to be hard to get people to want to stand in front of those things again when bombs start falling all over the place again. So I think that'll be a deterrent for them trying to hurry up and get back in position. And that's just my interpretation. I'm not trying to claim to be smart. I'm not. It just makes sense for that to be what may or may not be happening. I think that's a reasonable assumption on my part as someone that I'm not militaristically trained. I don't know all this stuff. But wouldn't it make sense? It would be common sense for them to say, well, let's just get these people, get them out of the way, and then when that target becomes available, then we can strike it. So I think they're just buying some time to let that happen. And I don't foresee the Strait of Hormuz becoming open immediately as the contingency we placed on Iran for this peace deal type thing. And I honestly, I just, I can't see 2 weeks after everything's been going on. Both sides, three members of this exchange have been going at it, and one of them is historically always going to stir up the hornet's nest, and it's classic them. So I think that's what we're going to see. Um, this might be just a temporary little speed bump in what may continue going on. I have not canceled my bullishness on crude oil. I think there's still underlying risks there, and while this might be, just a, I don't know how to explain it, a reason to wash out those individuals that were long. Um, I'm trying to remember if it was this market or it was another market I was looking at, and I was talking about how drawing a trend line, and I may have this wrong, but it's kind of like along the same lines here. You can see how nice and perfect that sideways diagonal thing was, and I was suggesting that it might be a good idea to see, and I might be wrong about that market because I have a lot of things going through my mind right now, and I'm trying to process and anticipate things. And it's a live stream, so I don't have the luxury of saying something and then correcting myself or readjusting with a thought in motion because we're live streaming. So I have a lot of things that are fighting to get to the front of my mind about what I think might be happening. And then as I'm looking at price action, new things are jumping in my head. So I'm having a little bit of a difficult time finding places for the information I'm getting and interpreting it. So if you're not versed in that type of thing, if you're not like looking for scenarios where um, you have to make a decision quickly, and I talked about this today in the Traders Roundup podcast. Lower time frames are going to make you feel like you have to do something because they feel faster, but they're not moving any faster. Okay, you can look at the 15-minute time frame here. and that looks like the floor fell out. But it's the same movement, same price movement that took place on that daily chart. So I think that this might be doing damage to people that are long, and then the next wave that hits these countries in exchange is going to be the real run where we start to see higher prices and extreme discomfort at the gas pump in all the countries. I just got gas in one of my SUVs just now, and the pump said 4.19, $4.19, and I understand that that's probably very expensive where you're at. If you're in California, you're thinking they're rookie numbers, bro. You're not even at 50% where we're at now. And I get it, but a lot of you, I'm sure, are feeling it, and I don't know I don't know when they'll bring prices down. Obviously, with this drop down here, you never see the pumps get adjusted for lower crude oil prices. They never drop it down to make up for the decline in the price, but they'll raise it up real quick when it goes up. And it's a very slow process for them to reduce it. So I'm going to go back out to a daily chart. And I didn't want to go too long with this. I just wanted to kind of give you my interpretation of what I think is taking place. And I would not be lulled into thinking that this was kind of like the end of everything. I would love for it to be the end of it. There's a lot of innocent people on both sides getting tore up, losing family members, dying, suffering. But I really don't see this isn't going to be an easy exit, clean stop. It's too dirty right now. A lot of emotions, a lot of desire for revenge. Okay, and even if they open up the Strait of Hormuz, that's not going to stop anything. There's going to be a lot of retribution that needs to be um, made and revenge exacted on other nations. It's we have a long time ahead of us with problems, and eventually, if this comes to pass where they do strike those targets they mentioned, that's obviously going to drive oil up a lot. And we can see the opposite of this movement here, just on the other side, much more ferocious. You know, volatility is the name of the game this year. And there are moves that are coming so fast, and they're happening when you are most likely not participating. Most of you right now, the fact that there's only 2,300 of you watching the stream right now, it's not an active time. It's not an active time for trading. Most people aren't trying to, pay attention or position themselves right now. So what will happen is tomorrow morning, when they see the markets opening up and they've slept through the evening, they're going to say, "Wow, look at what the market has done." And all those things are going to have a sentiment, kind of like engineering, like making them feel a certain way, bullish, bearish, whatever it is. And I'm not convinced that crude oil is done going up, but it can get a little dirtier, and it can come down and go even below that low. What says it can't do that and still make a higher high historically and keep going higher? Nobody can say that it can't do that. Like, all the rules are out the window with this market right now. Crude oil is absolutely the world's life's it's the lifeblood of the industrial. Every nation uses it, and while we have a lot of it and we can pump our own, we're still going to be paying prices that everybody else is paying. It's going to have an impact on us, and I'm convinced that someone positioned themselves with the information that he was going to do that, and they went short here and they went long on the indices. We talked about it. It's already been proven. It's an easy thing for them to do now. All they got to do is prime the market, light the fire, and have that bucket of water ready to put it out. So it's controlled, just like that manipulation. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do to stop it. Either you're going to accept the fact that it's going on and either trade around it or remove yourself from the market until it can no longer be done. And who knows when that's going to be. So, as an educator, I want to be fair, I want to be honest, and I want to be direct with you. There's certain things I don't know while markets are trading like this. This is the new experience for me. I'm doing the same thing you're doing. You're experiencing it for the first time, just like COVID was. It was a first time experience. But these markets, like crude oil right now, they are event driven. That means at any time something can happen that you did not expect. It's not on an economic calendar. They could drop a bomb, do another wave of attacks, and all of a sudden, boom, your portfolio, your account is decimated. So don't think just what happens if I get lucky and make a lot of money. Okay. And I talked about this today. I don't want to rehash all that, waste your time. But just be mindful. This is exactly what I was referring to about being careful because it can hurt you. And for those of you that may trade these markets and you don't use stop losses, man, that's bad. I mean, let's take a quick look at the 1 minute chart. Spend a little bit of time and then look at this drop. I mean, it's cruising. And if without a stop loss, you can lose a whole lot of money fast. So we hit the volume imbalance down here and we'll see where we go. But I am personally hands off. I don't want to talk about this market until it does something that makes sense. And it might not do that the rest of this week. I have not abandoned my bullishness on crude oil simply because the events that are taking place are just there's a discussion of a potential ceasefire. There's a potential for that to happen. But the demands that's been met or made hasn't been really met or promised. And we have one of the countries historically goes in to stir up the pot. So what happens if Israel says, well, we're going to, you may agree to it, Trump, but we're not agreeing to it. And they attack targets on their own because they've said so much in the past. What's Iran going to do? Just sit there and say, well, we promise we're not going to do anything. They're going to retaliate. And then what are we going to say? Well, you broke the ceasefire. So it's all theater. It's nonsense. There's no easy answer to this. It's a mess. And that's why crude oil is still going to be pressured. It's going to have a lot of focus and emphasis placed on it. All the attention is going to be on it. And the moves are going to be exaggerated. So if you feel comfortable trading that kind of market, hey, that's why they have casinos, right? But I'm just letting you know I'm going to take myself away from this market and visit it when there's something for me that's important to discuss because I don't want to influence any of you to do anything in this market that might hurt you. And to me, all I'm trying to be is responsible as an educator, as a teacher, someone that I know I have a great deal of influence over many of you. If I'm not talking about it, then you're left to your own devices. So then it's obviously all of your fault if you lose money. Okay, so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Let's go back to the daily chart. We'll go over to the dollar index because that one came down a lot. Okay, so we were here, we got down inside of the low end of that. We cut it outside of line a little bit there. So I want to see if it has any attempt to get back up on the upper half. Very, very challenging market conditions. This drop down here is going to disrupt the pound dollar and the euro dollar targets I had. Pound dollar hit one of the targets, but euro dollar didn't quite get down to my second target. So we'll look at that now with the euro. So euro found its way back up into this inversion fair value gap. And I stated if we got into that and above it, that would change and I would be wrong. Okay. So we didn't get the rollover outside of this little range in here. Event driven Trump stuff, you're going to have it. And I talked about how that might be a catalyst for me being wrong. There's nothing wrong with getting it wrong in this environment. Who can be consistently correct in this? I can't claim to be, and that's why if you've been watching the live streams, I'm prefacing it by stating that because of the climate that we're in, don't be lulled into thinking that you're going to be right or that you're going to see many things in terms of precision. It's going to basically make the water muddy, and don't expect to be correct as you would have been if we didn't have all these things going on. Okay, so with this, I'm going to have to concede and say I don't believe at the very moment that we'll see my target here, okay, in the timeline or the first 6 months. I think that we'll probably work deeper into this inefficiency here. Does it do it in the next candle or by the end of this week? I don't know that. In fact, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to roll away from live streaming and tape reading, and I'm going to segue into just doing educational stuff. Because if I'm live streaming, I know I'm going to be influencing you. I know I'm going to be talking about things. So I'm going to take the responsibility and elevate it in my hands because I want to be able to sleep at night. I don't want to be worrying about any of you. And I tend to do that when I'm talking about markets live, even if I'm tweeting about levels, because many of you still don't want to listen to me and you tell me I made this much money, I took this trade, and that just messes me all up. So I can still accomplish a lot of things teaching and removing myself, and by default, hopefully removing you from making bad decisions in an environment that I'm not willing to risk money in. And I'll say that plainly. Okay. If I'm not willing to open my live account and put a trade on in this environment, why would I want to inspire or influence you to do it? And that's my stance right now. That could change tomorrow. It could change on Thursday. Okay. And then I choose to I'm going to do a live stream. But as of right now, my conscience is telling me dial it back and go just pure into education. Don't try to talk about where you think the market's going to go next. Okay. Um, we moved to this area. I told you if we went there, I'm probably wrong, and I'm going to take that and stick to what I said. So I'm not looking for it to take these lows here. Watch this range in here and see how it uses this SIBI. Okay. There's a minor buy side liquidity pool resting here. If it starts to get a little bit animated to the upside, that would be the draw. But just be mindful of this inefficiency. It really sets this stage for a continuation on the upside if we get above here. But if it just goes into this area and stops about midpoint or consequent encouragement, that may just mean that we just consolidate, kind of like what we're doing here. It may just do that for a little while, for maybe a couple months, maybe through the entirety of the summer. And that'll be frustrating for you if you're trying to trade with swing trading or short term trading. Pound dollar, same thing here. I was explaining that I would want to see it really start to show a willingness to want to go lower, and it wasn't having that. And it's on the heels of what we saw, in the geopolitical event. There's nothing I'm going to be able to do if these things take place. And you either have to come to come to terms with that in your own trading and say, well, either it's worth the risk or it's not. And right now, what it's showing me is for cable, the relative equal highs here, I think that it will probably want to go up into that and take that out. Okay, because it's real clean. And we failed to make an attempt after leaving this buy side balance sell side efficiency. We went outside of it. This was okay. We dropped down, but then now all of this says no, it's probably not going to happen. So view this as sell side taken, false break below the SIBI, and then the smooth edges here. And then you want to come up and clean that up. Now, a little bit longer term, it could be doing something like this. It could go up there and clean these relative equal highs out. And then if it starts to lose ground, that could actually become the second stage redistribution. And at a later time, make an attempt to get down here. But as it is right now, I don't feel comfortable looking for a short, or would be looking for a short on pound, not before these highs are taken out. And that's my present viewpoint on this one. I wouldn't touch euro because it's just really unorganized. It obviously, if dollar loses more ground to the downside, then that would open up the potential for euro dollar to go higher. But I don't have a real clear objective where it would reach for there. So by comparing euro versus the pound, pound has relative equal highs. So how would you use this if you're adamant about only wanting to trade the euro dollar? Well, look at this high here. It's March 10th. So you can go back to euro dollar. Here's March 10th. We've already cleared that high. So what does it mean? It means this one's the stronger of the two, and pound dollar is the sick sister. So it's going to be lagging behind. So this can go up and consolidate around in this area here and then permit cable or pound dollar to find its way up and eventually get to this relative equal high. And again, that is contingent on the dollar index not rallying higher and or going lower. For this to happen, lower dollar or a failure to go higher. Either one of those scenarios for dollar makes this objective, cleaning these relative equal highs out, probably easy. Okay. Um, so we did crude oil, we did dollar, euro, cable. Let's do MES real quick. All right, so we talked about how, if they don't do the bombing, on Tuesday, well, here's Tuesday. If they don't do all the things they threatened they were going to do, the market could, pop up. And I gave you this area here where it could trade into. It obviously went to that and through it, and now we're above it. So this area could become an inversion. So now, because of what we've done here, in my mind, I'm saying that I would demand price stay out of this lower half now with the bodies. So any retracement, should it materialize, it should come back in at the very least, keep just the bodies in the upper half and not lay them down in the lower half. And if it does that, that could end up becoming an inversion. Because if you look at how the gap or inversion, I'm sorry, let me say it again. I'm reaching for Control M. I'm used to doing that when I make a mess up, when I'm saying something in the recording. I got to go back and edit that out. So I'm so stuck in the habit of doing that. The change from this candlestick's closed, this candlestick's open, because it opens higher, view that as a buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency. Okay. So if that occurs, this is an inversion fair value gap. If we trade up to it, but it's going through it like this then becomes a reclaimed fair bearish, I'm sorry, a reclaimed bullish fair value gap. And we want to see it stay out of the lower half. So the upper half is the sensitivity part, or the discount sensitivity is what we would be looking for. So as it is here, we would change this to now blue. So that way it helps me keep in focus what I gave you in terms of expectation. So this was bullish when it formed. When we're below it, it can act as an inversion. But if it trades through it, now we want to see it stay out of the lower half. And only any retracements use the upper half to high. And if it starts to rally from there, then obviously we would start looking for the next level, which is an inefficiency here, that volume imbalance, and that volume imbalance right here. Okay. And then ultimately, the buy side here making all-time highs. So it just looks like they're really laying the groundwork for May trading at all-time highs for the stock index futures. They'll have their their Fed chair in there, so the good old boy club will be complete there. MNY, same thing here. We want to see if it can get above that discount sensitivity in the upper half, stay out of the lower half. It may not even come back down to this, folks. I'm just saying that if it can trade to this, The upper half is what I would anticipate being discount sensitivity. Okay. Use it as a trampoline, then continue going higher. Next order of business is this volume imbalance right there. And I'm going to take this wick annotation off just for a moment. So I want to be able to view the price action a little bit cleaner. So it's this right here. And so if you're a Dow trader, you would look for price to try to gravitate up into this. MNQ, same thing here. We had this idea that if we get into that, it can come back down and use that as point of reference for discount sensitivity and then start to rally up. We have buy side here and then the relative equal highs. This is a lot of movement in one day. In an Asian session, um, if it gives this entire range up, let's play devil's advocate for a moment. Say in a matter of one trading session, okay, one trading quote unquote day, if we give all of this range up, then all of this was fluff, and I'm literally going to stay out of the market for a couple weeks. Okay, it's given us this now, so it needs to now support the idea of using the upper half of this and not put any bodies in the lower half. The buy side here, MNQ, that's your draw there. And we have a minor buy side in here. I'm just going to use the very first one. I'm not going to put it on this one. I'm not going to put it on this. I'm going to use the very first one. So that would be like an example of low-hanging fruit draw on a minor buy side liquidity pool. But the next one here is that. And then over here, like I said, I think in May, that will be the reason we get up here because of the new Fed chair. And, you know, you'll see. But let's take a quick look at this on a 15-minute time frame. All right, so here's the new day opening gap. We have an order block there, so we'll look at that. Let's do it like this. Open. There it is. And then we'll go into a 5-minute chart. New day opening gap. And 1-minute chart. New day opening gap. Close that and then open here. 632. We opened. Let's look at the range on this one candlestick. Okay. It opened at 24,600. Its high is 24,748. Its low is 24,360. So nearly 400 handles in one 60-second interval. That's what I was talking about. You got to be careful. You have to anticipate these types of things. This is the climate where these things can happen. And if you're not aware of it, if you're brand new, or if you're just absent-minded, you're not really being prepared and you're just risking too much and over leveraging or not trading without stop losses, in these environments will end you. It'll take you completely out of the game. And if you get caught by something like this and it hurts you to the extreme, I promise you the scar tissue that you carry, you'll imagine every candlestick you're watching next is going to do something similar to that. And it may not do it. But in your mind, you're going to anticipate that type of thing happening because you got hurt. That's what scar tissue feels like in trading. You feel like it's going to relive, you're going to relive that bad moment again. Getting stopped out, it's your biggest losing trade. When that happens, you feel like it's going to happen every trade you enter after that. So it's important for you to be mindful of the risk that's associated with this present climate because it's not going away, it's not reducing. So you have to make the decision. Do you move yourself out of risk and just purely go into tape reading and demo trading and or educational backed study. That's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let anybody talk to you. If you start seeing these jokers online saying, ha ha ha, ICT said this, that, and the other thing, and look how much money I made. I promise you, they will not show their entire platform. They will not show you every trade they've taken. They're only going to give you the highlight reel. Okay. So don't buy into that stuff. Anybody that's beating their chest saying it's easy right now, they're liars to you. Okay. They're lying to you and they're just trying to make themselves feel better because it's hard for them too. They just don't want to pretend that they want to pretend that it isn't and be a hero online. So it opened at 6 o'clock where we settled here. We opened, had the new day opening gap, rallied up, and this little business here, what is that? Let me see. Control R. It's my new little trick. There you go. So new day opening gap, monkeyed around a little bit, and then at 6:32 we had the open, rally up, and slam down, filled the gap, overshot a little bit in here, and then immediately started running. And this one candle here, it had a low of 465 half and a high of 67 3/4. So 200 handles there in 1 minute. So think about what that is basically. You have 1,000 handles basically inside of 120 seconds or 2 minutes. Folks, you're going to have your face tore off if you're playing around in these markets without stop losses and carrying them over. It's just, I just really want you to understand that this can hurt you. And because I'm getting emails all the time saying I was doing really well and all of a sudden this happened and I'm getting smoked where these big runs and it's all this stuff here. It's Trump related stuff. It's what it is. He's posting something and the market is using it to run. So it's a perfect little tag team. Manual intervention comes in, make a run on the post that he's putting out. And the greedy people that are, aware of it, they're positioning themselves ahead, insider trading, and then takes off and they're laughing at everyone. So again, don't beat yourself up. Don't get mad about it. Ain't no changing it. Okay, you can't stop them. They have their own little piggy bank casino going on right now, and it is what it is. So it certainly looks firm in here. This little inefficiency thing is that volume imbalance on the daily chart. Let's go back up to it again real quick. That's this here. This one's a little bit closer in proximity. I would prefer it not take this high until it comes back down and at least touches the high of this. That would be a reason for me to tape read it. Let's put it that way. I'm not willing to chase it where it's at or tomorrow if it keeps this range here high and lofty like that. If it does do that, but not take out that high, then tomorrow's morning session would be obviously a large premium opening range gap on regular trading hours. And then we would look for it to try to trade down in this area here. That would be something that could be a noteworthy study on your part. I will not be live streaming over the morning session tomorrow. Okay. I'm not going to be posting any draws on liquidity, but what I just stated here, rewind that portion again, you'll hear what I said. That's all I would expect if the criteria I just outlined is in fact in play still. Anything can happen tonight, tomorrow, whatever it is. Right now it's dark here in the United States, and that means it's daytime over there. So maybe when things get dark there and we have daylight here, then we'll probably see, if they just waited for them to move away from the targets, they maybe make a move then. Okay. And I hope I'm wrong, but it just seems like that would be the common sense approach to not slaughtering innocent people standing in front of targets they've announced ahead of time. So now let me think. I covered Forex, I covered dollar, crude oil, gold. gold's popped up into this inefficiency here. As I mentioned, it would have to get above that and use that to try to send it higher. It still wouldn't touch these markets personally. And silver probably had its reaction similar to the, yeah, same thing here. Like I said, I would not touch these markets. Crude oil has the potential to enter these types of conditions like this. So once we had this big drop down like that, have a little bit of a rally up, kind of like a relief rally to it, and then it just got real hard to trade, on a short-term basis, but seeing still targets being met. Difference is there's no removal of the potential for upside for crude oil. Here, it was baked in because the COMEX doesn't have enough silver to deliver, and they did the 1980, you know, boardwalk shuffle on everybody and brought it down to uh, lower prices, canceling out all these buddies in the banks that had heavy net short positions and didn't answer their margin calls. So we saw that actually unfold, and there it is. So if it starts to rally here, just be mindful of this volume imbalance there. We would like to see it use that as a reclaimed bullish fair value gap, or not fair value, and volume imbalance. So the upper half would need to be sensitive, leaving that lower half no bodies. Okay, same thing here. It would have to use that same criteria there. But in this case, it would be inversion because it gapped lower here. This candlestick's open where it closed there. It was movement lower, so that would be like a SIBI. Trading above it, that becomes a bullish inversion fair value gap. Here, it was bullish. So this, if it trades above this there, the upper half, if it becomes discount sensitivity, it's a reclaimed bullish volume imbalance. Because if this was a body and not just a wick separating it, this would be a buy side of sell side inefficiency. So a bullish PD array. Price above it would have to use the discount sensitivity characteristics of only using the upper half to then send it and propel it higher. And I think that's going to be it. Very boring, very dry, kind of like anticlimactic. You get feeling of like, ugh, you know, it's exhausting when you're having to trade in markets like this because you have a lot of emotion behind it because people are getting hurt, people's lives are getting destroyed, countries are being tore up, and you're baited with more of the same and worse, and then they dial it back and pull it back. So it's going to wear on you. It's going to wear on your emotions. It's going to wear on your psyche. It's going to wear on your heart if you're human. Because if you're not living there, you're blessed. You're not going through what they're going through. All of them. There's a lot of people in both of those countries, Israel and Iran, that don't want none of this to go on, but yet they're stuck with it. And they're living in fear. And that's terrible because there's women and children over there that they're not going to fight, but they have to endure it all. So it's really bad. It's horrible. And when you have all those thoughts in your mind when you're looking at these markets, it's a very difficult task to try to remove those thoughts and still think clearly about what you think price is going to do. So it creates a little bit of moral dilemma for some, and that means you're human. So I'll talk to you next time. I wish you good luck, good trading, and be safe.